this smoothie, bussin'.
That's cap.
It's like you left the plate clean. You ate it up.
Like after a girl says something, you're like, oh, okay, period. Like you ate.
If someone's like obsessed with a guy and he clearly doesn't like your, well, I'm gonna say you're delulu.
So good.
What did they just say? More millennials and Gen Z adults are deciding not to have kids, and it appears one of the main reasons is money. According to a new survey from MassMutual, about 23% of adults ranging from 18 to 43 years old say they don't want children because they value their financial freedom and they have concerns about the cost of raising kids in today's economy.
As the years go by, every generation faces its own challenges. The boomers dealt with cold wars, the millennials with economic crises. So it's no big deal, right? Wrong. Now we're facing a new generation, Gen Z, who are fighting tooth and nail in an uphill battle. And it's not just any battle, it's a particularly dark one. Why? Because they're entering adulthood with a smartphone in one hand and the weight of the world on their shoulders. They have to choose between being adults like previous generations in a chaotic world or keeping up with the latest TikTok trend. And we don't blame them. These are really, really chaotic times. But the thing is, this goes deeper than it seems. And today, we are going to break it down for you. This is why Gen Z is fighting an uphill battle. Welcome back to Rogue Invest. All right, let's begin. Back in 1999, when the world was freaking out about Y2K, while Britney Spears is telling us to hit her one more time, somewhere, a tiny human is being born. Fast forward to today, and that tiny human is now a fully grown adult, trying to navigate a world that's about as stable as a Jenga tower in an earthquake. These are the Gen Z, the generation born between 1997 and 2012. These kids grew up with smartphones glued to their hands and social media as their second language. They were tiny tots when September 11th happened, barely in middle school during the 2008 financial crisis. And to make things worse, they have entered adulthood in the middle of a global pandemic. Now, despite growing up in a world of infinite information and technological advances, Gen Z is facing challenges that would make even the most optimistic millennial want to crawl back into bed and binge-watch Friends for the 100th time. First up on our Gen Z struggle bus, the economy. Now sure, isn't the economy always a mess? Well, yeah, that's true. But for Gen Z, it's like trying to play Monopoly while someone keeps changing the rules and stealing money from the bank. You see, Gen Z is entering the workforce at a time when the global economy doesn't even know the meaning of the word stability. Inflation is skyrocketing, making everything from rent to ramen noodles more expensive than ever. In the UK, for example, inflation hit 9.9% in August 2022. In the US, it was 8.3%. And if you think that's bad, spare a thought for our friends in Argentina, where inflation soared to 78.5%. At this rate, we'll be using that monopoly money to buy groceries soon. Gen Z is also dealing with something called the Great Recession hangover. And it's not what happens when you drink too much. It's the lasting impact of the 2008 financial crisis. You see, while Gen Z was busy learning their ABCs and watching Dora the Explorer, the world economy was having a meltdown of epic proportions. And like that one embarrassing photo from middle school, the effects of that meltdown are still haunting us today. The result: Gen Z is entering a job market that is not exactly welcoming them. They're competing for jobs with millennials who are still trying to recover from the Great Recession and boomers who can't afford to retire. And it's like a really depressing game of musical chairs, where the prize is a job that barely pays enough to cover rent and student loan payments. And that brings me to the next point: education. Now, we've all heard the old saying, education is the key to success. But for Gen Z, it's starting to feel more like education is the key to crippling debt and a lifetime of financial anxiety. In the US, the average Gen Zer owes about $20,900 in student loan debt. That's 14% more than millennials owed at the same age. And in the UK, well, the average student debt for undergraduate borrowers exceeds £40,000. That's about double what American students owe. But surely all that debt is worth it for a good education and a high-paying job, right? Well, about that, Gen Z is entering a job market where a college degree is about as common as a Starbucks on every corner. And just like those Starbucks, not all degrees are created equal. Many Gen Zers are finding that their expensive degrees aren't translating into high-paying jobs. Imagine paying for a 5-star meal and getting served a Happy Meal instead. This is something like that. And sorry, but no offense to Happy Meals. Decent. But they're not exactly what you want when you're trying to pay off tens of thousands in student loans. And if we talk about buying a house, well, that might just give Gen Z a heart attack. For previous generations, buying a house was a rite of passage, like getting your driver's license or having your first time. But for Gen Z, home ownership is starting to feel about as achievable as winning the lottery while being struck by lightning. Twice. Wages have been creeping up slowly, and housing prices have been skyrocketing. In the US, Gen Z has about 86% less buying power than baby boomers did at the same age. In other words, buying a house is almost impossible these days. And the result? Many Gen Zers are stuck in a cycle of renting, watching their hard-earned money go into their landlord's pocket instead of building equity in a home of their own. And in the worst case, or best, depending on how you see it, you're still living with your parents, waiting for the day they pass away so you can finally own a house, even if it's through inheritance. But hey, at least you can save money by living with your parents, right? Well, about that. While many Gen Zers are indeed boomeranging back to their childhood bedrooms, it's not exactly the carefree experience you might imagine. Some say that whatever you save on rent, you end up spending on therapy to deal with the trauma of still living with your parents while trying to be an adult. That's the reality. And the odds of getting out of it are worse. Before we continue, quickly hit the like and subscribe button. Our goal is to help spread information that nobody wants to talk about. It will really help us keep on bringing videos like these. We mentioned before about the job market, that the competition is tough. Now, competition has always been a factor in jobs, so the solution has always been to improve, specialize, and stand out. But what happens when the job market itself is always changing and doesn't give you the chance to do that? Thanks to technological advancements and automation, jobs that were once considered stable career paths are practically disappearing. Gen Z is having to navigate a world where the skills they learn today might be obsolete by the time they finish their bubble tea tomorrow. They're expected to be social media experts, data analysts, and coding wizards all rolled into one, while also somehow finding time to maintain a perfect work-life balance and cultivate a personal brand. And now, this is absolutely necessary. It seems that having a college degree is no longer enough. You need a personal brand even for an office job. That doesn't make any sense. And to make it worse, yeah, I said worse, Gen Z is also dealing with the rise of the gig economy. Now on paper, the gig economy sounds great. Work when you want, be your own boss, wear pajamas all day. What's not to love? Well, as it turns out, quite a lot. The gig economy often means unstable income, no benefits, and the constant stress of hustling for your next paycheck. Don't get me wrong, I know we used to say, down with the 9 to 5, down with the system, and be your own boss. But we've let things get a bit out of hand. We're no longer our own bosses, but our own slaves to instability. Considering all of that, it's clear why we're seeing a spike in mental health issues. All these economic and societal pressures? You're kidding? It's not an easy task. and they're taking a toll on Gen Z's mental well-being. According to studies, Gen Z is reporting higher levels of anxiety and depression than any other generation. They're carrying the weight of the world on their shoulders, and the world keeps getting heavier, and their shoulders aren't getting any stronger. And despite all these challenges, Gen Z is still expected to solve all the world's problems. Climate change. Gen Z needs to fix it. Social inequality. Gen Z should tackle that too. The fact that pineapple on pizza is still a controversial topic? Yep, that's on Gen Z's to-do list as well. It's like the world handed Gen Z a dumpster fire and said, "Here, we messed this up. You fix it." Oh, and could you do it quickly? We've got brunch plans. And, geez, this all sounds pretty depressing. Is there any hope for Gen Z? Well, they have some things going for them, to be fair. They're resilient, adaptable, and more technologically savvy than any other generation. And they're not afraid to challenge the status quo and fight for what they believe in. Sure, they have their hands full, and yet somehow they're already managing it. Gen Z is leading the charge on issues like climate change, social justice, and mental health awareness. They're starting businesses from their bedrooms, creating art that challenges societal norms, and using social media to amplify their voices. They're redefining success on their own terms, prioritizing experiences over material possessions, and valuing purpose over paychecks. It's like they've looked at the game board, realized the rules are stacked against them, and decided to flip the table and start a new game altogether. And while this is truly admirable, the harsh reality is that it shouldn't have to be necessary. The challenges they're facing aren't just character-building experiences or paying your dues. They're systemic issues. They didn't create this mess. They just inherited it. And believe me, they would have preferred to inherit a big bank account, houses, and land instead of this. So, yeah, this is their uphill battle. Can you imagine what will happen when Generation Alpha arrives? Will adulthood still be a survival game? Or maybe they'll at least get an interest-free home loan. Until then, keep fighting the good fight, Gen Z. And, if all else fails, there's always the option of becoming a professional meme creator. It may not pay the bills, but at least you'll laugh. We encourage you to subscribe to our channel and leave a comment on the topics you would like us to discuss. Help us spread the message by liking and sharing our content. Until next time, stay informed and unplug from the Matrix.